These are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Backup, the Cloud Made Easy with AWS and Veeam. I want to make one quick logistic note for everybody. Everybody's on listen-only mode, so if you have questions throughout the presentation, just go ahead and enter them in the question window, and we'll get it at the end of the presentation. So my name is Sean Senior, and I am Clearpath Chief Technology Officer. What does that mean? Essentially, I'm responsible for strategic delivery for our hybrid cloud solutions and really assisting our customers shape cloud strategies that make sense for their unique challenges. In the past, I've been a software and solution architect at ADP, Microsoft, and Amazon Web Services. That gave me the opportunity to help customers of all shapes and sizes deliver cost-effective solutions for over 17 years. That experience has given me a unique foundation for helping customers from both the development and an infrastructure perspective. So I wanted to share a quick overview of Clearpath. We really characterize ourselves as a technology integrator focused on providing tools, architecture, and services that enable our customers to build agile, scalable, and highly available hybrid clouds. We're headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we have regional offices in Baltimore, Maryland, and Boston, Massachusetts. There we go. Here's an overview snapshot of our product and services that focus on 4 key pillars of the virtualized data center. Virtualization, data management. What I mean by that is really primary and backup storage, networking, and cloud services. We pride ourselves in our collaborative approach with our customers to ensure we deliver the right products, the best architecture, and outstanding services as we build out their private hybrid cloud environment. Our partnerships with industry-leading technology providers include VMware, Cisco, EMC, and AWS. This breadth allows our expert staff to deliver solutions that meet customer needs while leveraging our deep experience with proven architectures. And of course, Veeam, which is another cornerstone partnership for Clearpath. We are a Veeam Gold partner. We're consistently leveraging Veeam in our solutions because it's powerful, easy to use, affordable, and the bottom line, our customers simply say it works. Veeam allows our customers to get backup and replication in a single solution for their virtualized environment rather than needing to deal with multiple products. And importantly, Veeam introduces backup storage to the cloud with minimal financial risk to our customers that really blends with our hybrid cloud architectures. You can leverage S3 and gain that 11 nines of durability for your backup. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over the presentation to our partners at Veeam.
Thanks, Sean. I want to introduce myself to kind of start things out. My name is Michael Stuparitz. I'm one of the systems engineers here with Veeam. And kind of how we're going to roadmap this. We're going to talk about a little bit about who Veeam is, where we stand as a company, what's made us so popular with our customers. And we're going to talk about a little bit of our architecture, how it actually deploys in your environment. We'll talk about options we have of taking it up to the cloud. And then we'll talk about some of the recovery options we would have available as well. After we go through a few slides, we'll go into the demo. We'll actually show what it looks like inside of my lab. And we'll wrap everything up with a little Q&A at the end there as well. So what are some of the factors that sets Veeam apart? Well, one of the biggest things is our real true history of innovation. So we've constantly been changing what we do and add to our product, just adding lots and lots of new features every single version we come out, and keeping on a really tight release cycle. This really keeps our customers happy, and we make sure we're listening to what they say. We had said from the beginning of time we were never going to offer tape as an option for backups. Well, last version, we actually released it. And that's all because our customer said it's something that they needed. It was part of their retention policies, so it's something we came out with. The cloud kind of fell in that camp as well. It wasn't something we initially set out to do, but because of the demand from our customers, we always listen to you guys because that's really what drives our business, is constantly being able to adapt to what's out there and add different innovations to that growth that we have as a company. We also have had a lot of customer growth. That's been built through channels, partnerships, things like we have with Clearpath, so we can develop these really big channels and have our partners help us in selling the product and getting that word out about us. We've already gone to nearly 100,000 customers, and we've only been selling software for about 6 years. So definitely a very rapid growth, constantly just making a big name for ourselves inside of this backup market. Sean did mention that our 3 big things are easy to use, affordable, and powerful. So powerful is going to refer to all the different restore options that we're going to have. Easy to use, we have a really nice interface, very wizard-driven. It makes it very easy, so you don't have to go to classes or week-long seminars to learn how to use our product. It's very intuitive. So a little bit of history about Veeam and kind of where we stood. I'm not going to touch on all the points here, but we started off in 2008, and we released version 1. It was a simple backup replication, did not have a lot of restore options, but it did allow for things like file recovery and deduplication. As time went on, we realized there was other things we needed to integrate with. We needed tighter management with the VMware because we wanted to be able to back up virtual machines in the best way possible. So we started to integrate with them and use their storage APIs, use things like their VADP protocols, and we also released support for change block tracking. So this allows us to see which blocks are actually changing on a daily basis, make sure we know what's changing, makes it a lot faster and more efficient when it comes to backing up on an incremental basis. We really released some groundbreaking technologies with version 5. That was our big step into the market. With this, we released both vPower, which kind of allowed us to do these other technologies. So vPower is essentially our ability to power up a virtual machine from its compressed and dedupe backup file. It's a fast and easy way to get back a virtual machine that may have failed during the day, get it back online so that your users can get it back inside of their applications. Along with that came the SureBackup and UWare, which both rely on our virtual lab with a combination of vPower. As time went on, we added some new things like easier file restores. The Cloud Edition came out not too long ago. And again, that was just something so we could make it even better for our customers to be able to take their backups, have local storage for a week or 2 weeks, something that they could do their most common restores. But for those archives that you're going to never really need that just are out there for SLAs, that's what we have out there. We have the Cloud Edition so you can just push it up to S3 or Glacier. Keep it up there for long-term retentions, but it's probably not something you're going to have to be retrieving very often. With V7, we came out with last August. With this, we released things like built-in WAN acceleration, so just understanding how backups are structured. So we don't have to keep sending over those same blocks every single time we're looking to transfer a backup. We also released things as like the backup from SAN snapshots. That's our integration with HP, and we're always looking to evolve with that. So we're going to be adding in additional vendors to that, constantly looking for other things that we can utilize to back up from SAN snapshots. So just kind of a chart on how our customers is growth. You can obviously see here how rapidly we're growing, over 50% every single year. So just year-on-year growth, we're just kind of multiplying exponentially how fast we're getting into this customer market. And it is, again, because we are based on being the best possible solution for backing up virtual machines. You don't have to take my word for it. Gartner has actually put us on their visionary side of their quadrant. This is Magic Quadrant for enterprise backup, and it really kind of set a precedent. So this is our first time appearing on it. This is the first time we were even evaluated. And most people start off in the niche players. They really are out there. They have maybe a few things going for them, nothing too great. We actually started out in the visionaries, so we're out there. We're definitely looking to constantly change things and mix up the scene of backup. So we're always looking to innovate, like I said, and we've been awarded over 55 different awards in the virtualization industry. So again, just making that name for ourselves that we really understand how virtual machines should be backed up, how you should be treating them, and what you should be doing with these backups. And taking it to the cloud is really kind of taking it to the next level. So let's get into the technical side of things. That's who we are as a company. Now let's get into a little bit more of the meat of the product. So when we decided that we wanted to back up virtual machines, there are really 2 design goals that I see that we had in mind. One was to be a completely agentless product that really set us apart from almost every other backup company out there and kind of really changes the game. With agents on the VMs, there's a lot of downsides to that, right? You've got to deploy it on every single VM. It's something you've got to maintain. You've got to update it. And it really adds complexity to your backup solution. When you add a new VM, you've got to make sure that there's an agent on it. Then it's got to get added into a job. And it makes for a very tedious process. Agents also make it more costly, right? So you have to buy every single agent. So the upfront cost may not be too much, but when you start realizing you need an Exchange agent, a SQL agent, it really gets kind of costly. What Veeam did is we actually said we are never going to use agents, even when it comes to doing things like application-aware image processing, so backing up machines like SQL, Exchange, Active Directory, SharePoint. any of those moving parts, we still are not using agents. We've actually maintained that from the beginning. That is something we hold very strong to. The other thing I see that we did was making sure that we were doing image level backups. So the ability to back up the entire virtual machine as a whole, whether that be the virtual hardware, operating system, applications, files, application items, we wanted to make sure we were backing up everything. That's really so that we could offer a lot of different restore options. We actually only have one type of backup. That's an image level backup, so there's no backups for particular virtual machines or anything along those lines. And that one backup allows for 27 different restore points. So it gives you the flexibility to get the entire virtual machine back. Maybe it's just that one file you need back, or maybe just an individual Exchange email as well. We're pretty much the best support out there for both VMware and Hyper-V. We're really close to their release cycles. We were about 6 weeks behind them on both VMware 5.5 as well as Hyper-V 2012 R2. So we're really tight on their release cycles, making sure that we have support for it. We were one of the first actually to offer support for both of those hypervisors. So one of the things we developed, you saw that we had on our list change block tracking. Well, that's really just a VMware particular option. Well, we didn't think that that was a great idea, so we actually developed our own change block tracking for Hyper-V. That way we didn't leave you guys out when it comes to those incrementals and be able to see which blocks are changing on a regular basis and which ones we need to be including as part of our incremental backups. So when we talk about being built for virtualization, we really were designed around the image-based backup and recovery and the tools that we could leverage because we're a disk-to-disk backup solution. We do offer ourselves up as a two-in-one tool. Obviously, backup and replication are included with the product. So with backup and replication, there are kind of two different pieces to the puzzle, two different sides to the same coin, if you will. With backup, it's going to be ending in a flat backup file, so something just very simple, just ending in a .vpk, .vib. With replication, it is going to be ending in a powered-off virtual machine. So it's going to have a one-to-one copy of your virtual machine over at another location. We're going to talk about replication a little bit deeper in just a moment. We also offer the vPower technology. This is something that we created because we're backing up at the image level that really is just very powerful. It can get virtual machines on in a matter of less than 5 minutes, so getting back a virtual machine that went down, or maybe it's just testing virtual machines with the virtual lab. It also opens us up for doing our UAIR recovery, which is Universal Application Item Recovery. So that's getting back things like SQL tables or Active Directory objects, so you can dive down deep into those applications and restore the particular piece of the puzzle that you're looking for. I mentioned change block tracking earlier. When we talk about change block tracking and how it's actually helped, so it actually increased your incremental and in-between backups by 20 times. That's a pretty significant number when we're seeing which blocks have changed. We only back up those. We're not even having to index the whole virtual machine. It's already a file that's out there with VMware. Why not put it to good use? It's what allowed us to have near continuous data protection. So running the job, checking which change blocks have happened, backing those up, and then starting the backup process again. So basically only having to rerun the job every couple minutes and backing up whatever changes have happened in those couple minutes. Now, Veeam, we actually developed that change block tracking for Hyper-V just so that they were on the same level. We can use one console to back up both VMware and Hyper-V. And you'll see that when we get into the demo that I have both in my lab. That is definitely something we support. We know a lot of customers out there are trying Hyper-V. They may have a VMware installment already out there, but they want to see what Hyper-V is all about. They want to test it. They want to make sure they're backing it up, whether it even be in their test or development environment as well. So we have support for both, all through the same console, allowing you to go through and schedule all those jobs out in one convenient location. So a little bit about why you might be choosing replication and why our replication stands out from some of the other ones. One of the biggest differences is that ours is a little bit more cost-effective than a lot of the other solutions out there. When I say that, that's really because when you look at your other offsite location, in a lot of other SAN-to-SAN replications or site replications, they require you have the exact same hardware. That can get pretty costly if you have to buy that same SAN over at your other location. So what we've done is we actually made it so that you can actually have dissimilar hardware. It is a VM level backup, so it's still using image level backup, and just push it over to that offsite location. So it allows for high availability, business continuity, and kind of helps you to enable a more unified data protection, making sure that it's a forever incremental process so it's easy, and it just keeps sending across changes and making sure that it's updated. One of the biggest misconceptions about replication is that there's only one restore point, so it's only a one-to-one copy. Well, with Veeam, we actually have a many-to-one copy. So we actually have, over at your offsite location, as many as up to 28 restore points. So if you have a kind of standby site over there that you want to put to good use, You want to make sure that those hosts are being utilized a little bit farther. Veeam can really help you with that. As far as our replication, a little bit more about it. It's really out there for high availability, disaster recovery, being able to basically click a button, fail over, do things like re-IP, network remapping for you, make sure we fail over that other location, and that you don't have to go through as many changes once it's already in that process. We do also have a failback, so that's where you're going from your DR site back to your production site. It's going to be beneficial if you ever want to come back to that site. Maybe something happened, you got your site A back up online, you want to go back to that site, back to your full production. Well, we actually can do a delta sync where we just send across those files that have changed during our failover process. So a little bit about our architecture and what makes it a little bit different. We use what is called a distributed architecture. So this is something that came around in about version 5, and what it allows us to do is actually make our architecture completely scalable. So if you take a look at this picture, what you've already got now is going to be your VMware or Hyper-V host. You've got your production storage. You've got your Veeam components on the right-hand side. What we have is the backup, the proxy, repository. So the backup is really the brains of the operation. It handles all your job scheduling, job distribution, and it's really just the console that you get to interact with. When we talk about the individual proxies, those are really what's doing all the work. So the backup server is handing this information to the proxy is going out and retrieving the information. The proxy handles all the reading, writing, deduplication, compression, really just doing all the work for us. The backup server, though, is going to have load balancing, which is going to be intelligent, so we can actually do that automatically, making sure that we go out there and we're not over-scheduling one proxy, we actually make sure we're utilizing all the resources that you've given to us. Lastly is the repository. The repository is actually just any sort of disk-based storage you'd like to be writing to. With our product being disk-to-disk, you will be writing to a local storage of some sort as your primary target, and then from there, that's where you can offload that information to the cloud. One of the big benefits of having it go up to the cloud as a secondary repository is that you can actually have different retention policies. So, a very common example is to have 7 or 14 days worth of backups on your local repository. When it comes up to the cloud, you might have a month or 2 months or something that's going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more flexible for those archival and long-term retention policies. So about our vPower technology. I mentioned earlier that it was just a really innovative technology that we came out with that really helped us kind of change the way we did restoration options. It is a patent-pending Veeam technology, so something we're looking to go out there and kind of keep to ourselves. But what this is doing is it's actually taking the backup repository and so using that as a data store. So it's actually using that compressed and dedupe backup file, presenting it back to the host. Host sees it as an image file, and is able to turn it right on from there. So it's simply going to allow you with that fast way to see a VM from the host level. The host will power it on, and we're doing all this for you. So it's doing this all through API calls. It's utilized in Instant VM Recovery. Instant VM Recovery is probably our most popular recovery option. It is just going to provide you with that fast way of getting VMs. In most cases, you get a VM back up and running in less than 2 minutes. But in some of the cases of really large SQL servers that may be multi-terabyte or something along those lines, it is always going to be under 5 minutes. If we take a look when we get into our lab, you'll notice that my server comes back up in about 30 seconds. It is going to provide you with a great way to help take the pressure off of you as well. End user requests to get into an application, something's not working. You can simply get that VM back up and running, get them back to their application, and then you can start troubleshooting, deep diving, finding the root cause analysis, and figuring out what actually went wrong in the first place. SureBackup actually kind of expands on that. SureBackup is using the vPower technology, but it's doing so inside of a virtual lab. The virtual lab is actually a Linux proxy helper appliance. We deploy it out there in your environment for you. It's going to create isolation, so it creates a fenced-off environment. Inside of this fenced-off environment is where the virtual machines are going to come back up online. So they're only going to connect to this VLAN that the virtual lab has created. Once they're on this VLAN, we can do whatever kind of testing we want. It uses a series of mask-created IPs, so you can get into the VM if you ever needed to, but it does allow you to get inside, do things like test out the newest Windows patches, make sure they're not going to affect the VM. Maybe you have a SQL server that you want your DBA to pop into, take a look at. Or lastly, it could be because maybe you just want to test out a new application or train someone on an application, but you don't want them breaking production. So it is able to be used on any sort of virtual machine, any restore point that you may have, and that's really one of the big benefits of SureBackup. It can be scheduled to run after every single backup, kind of as a post-processing activity. That way we run a backup, we run the SureBackup test. The SureBackup spins it in the virtual lab and then runs a series of tests on it. So a heartbeat test, ping test, and a scripting test. Really allows you to make sure you know that your backups are going to be 100% recoverable. There's no more guess and check. There's no more fingers crossed method. You're actually going to know that your backups are going to work when you need them to. So a little bit of how it works in more of a visual diagram. So it's using that vPower technology. The cloud is represented as the virtual lab itself. It's creating that isolation. So its own little environment where we can boot up any number of virtual machines and even have an application group set up for any sort of dependencies you may have. So whether that be the fact that Active Directory needs to boot up first, maybe you have a DHCP server, anything along those lines, those can boot up first, and then the other virtual machines can boot up from there. We also offer instant file level recovery. With instant file level recovery, it is a one-click file restore back to its original location. So you can actually navigate through it just like it was Windows Explorer. Go to where the file is located, right-click, restore it back to its original location. It is a very universal file recovery. So it is going to support a lot of different operating systems and about 18 different file systems. With this, we have a separate option for Windows, and some of the other operating systems we're going to support are going to be like Linux, Unix, Solaris, a couple other ones just to name a few. It is very flexible, so we can do this from both backups and replicas, and in both cases we do not even have to power them on. We're simply going to be able to navigate through the backup files, find out what's out there, navigate through it, and find what we're looking for. Lastly, when it comes to our restores, there's going to be our UAir option. So UAir used to include all sort of application recoveries in the forms of Active Directory, SharePoint, Exchange, and SQL. We've actually developed some new tools for Exchange and SharePoint, both 2010 and 2013, in order to make those types of restores even easier. What that's going to allow you to do, though, is not even having to power the virtual machines on. UAir is still going to be using the virtual lab, though. So with UAir, it's really now used for SQL and Active Directory restores. There's nothing additional you need to deploy. There's no additional products. It's not a la carte or anything along those lines. But it is going to allow you to recover application data. So things like users or tables within inside of SQL. I'm going to take a quick pause for a sip of water. I'm going to boot up my lab. We'll start the brief demonstration in just 1 second. All right. So when we talk about the product in general, now that we've got our lab fired up, I want to highlight on some of the options we have in backup jobs and how some of the jobs lay out inside of our environment. We talk about the general setup for Veeam. It's generally going to take you about 15-20 minutes to actually get the product installed. Then you're going to have to set it up for your environment, adding in things like managed servers, number of proxies, and any repositories you'd like to be backing up to. I want to take a look now inside of a backup job and see the different options that we have available. Under the Virtual Machines tab, that's where I'm going to come to add in new virtual machines. And what I have here, I can add it in from a lot of different levels. I can add it in from a whole vCenter at a time. I can back up a data center at a time. Cluster, I can add in resource pools, individual hosts, or individual virtual machines as well. Probably one of the most common ways we see things added in is going to be through the VMware folders. In the case of Hyper-V, you're generally going to be added in single virtual machines at a time. The biggest reason we see virtual machines added in a folder at a time is really because the ease of use that it provides. So with this, what it's going to do is if you ever delete anything from inventory, add anything to inventory, we're going to be able to keep track of those changes. We're going to see what's changing inside of your environment. We can see which virtual machines come in and out. We can make sure that those get included in your backup as well. In most cases, you're going to include somewhere close to 20 virtual machines per job, just to make sure you're doing load balancing, making sure that we're making the most out of each of the individual proxies. Under the storage options, I do recommend leaving the backup proxy as automatic. That's going to allow us to intelligently select which proxies using that automatic load balancing that I talked about. Backup repository, you just simply select it from a drop-down menu. And then it's going to be about setting out your retention policy. So this is the number you like to keep on local disk. This is not going to affect your cloud retention. Suppose people here are going to be putting in something like 7 or 14 just to represent a number of days. We do have some advanced options here on different methods of running the backup. So there are two different modes. The one that most people are familiar with is going to be incremental. It's always going to be a forward incremental, and that's generally what we recommend, especially if you're going to be wanting to upgrade to the cloud and upload it up there. What it's going to do is it can run synthetic fulls, active fulls on the weekends, whichever approach you're looking for. Synthetic fulls are another approach to fulls where we don't have to access the virtual machine again. we're simply going to be going out there, accessing the fulls and incrementals that we have as part of the chain, and we're going to create a full from that, just compiling all those different blocks that will make up that new full. So, other options we have. We can configure secondary destinations. So secondary destinations for us are going to be a backup copy, which will allow you to copy from your site into another site. And the other option would be backup to tape. A lot of people have it out there as part of their retention policy. It's just an SLA that they have to meet. So we do have that ability to back up to tape as post-processing. We have a couple really critical options here under guest processing. The first one's going to be for application-aware image processing. What this allows us to do is trigger the native Microsoft VSS writers so that we can quiesce or quiet down those applications before we take their backup, making sure we get a transactionally consistent backup as opposed to a crash-consistent backup. It's really what allows us to make sure we stop all those moving parts, back up the system in a good state, and then go ahead and get the server moving again. This is going to be the key option for things like Exchange, SQL, Active Directory, SharePoint, really anything that can utilize Microsoft's VSS writers. With this option checked, we can also do log truncation. It's a good option there for both SQL and Exchange to just prune down those log files, make sure they're as small as possible before we finish that backup. The second option here is going to be for guest file system indexing. So with this option checked, we're going to create a master catalog. It's going to allow for both browsing, searching, and all of our one-click file restores directly through our web interface. So you're going to be able to go out there, not even know where a file is located, type a keyword, find that particular matches for that file, and from there you'll be able to do all of your restore options for a file. You'll be able to see the different versions that we have, and it can also tell you if it's offloaded on another site, on a tape, anything like that. So it does provide you with a flexible way of finding the file if you're not really sure where it's located. As far as our schedule is concerned, it's going to be very flexible to fit whatever needs you may have. So whether that be running the job automatically every single day, probably going to be our most common. But if it's a very static server that doesn't have a lot of change, you could be running it monthly. It could also run periodically, so every hour, couple hours. That is a big change for a lot of people who are used to legacy-style backup solutions. Most people are used to running it just once a day because that's all the software could do. Because of our approach of using snapshots and the way we actually look at the virtual machine as a whole, we can definitely be running these more frequently. We can also do what's called after this job, which is really just daisy chaining jobs together, so running one job as soon as the other jobs have finished. I want to take a look now at a replication job so we can see what the differences are, a little bit how it changes really the destination. That's the key change here. So some of the options that are going to make replication different are going to be these three options here. The first one's going to be for replica seeding. So with replica seeding, that's our ability to take a backup file, push it over to an offsite location. Once it's over there, we're going to just be able to send over all the incrementals. So we're not going to have to keep sending over the full. Once it's already over there, we're just going to push across incrementals. Definitely going to be a lot smaller, help with things that might have low bandwidth in between two sites. We're also going to have things like network remapping, re-IP. So both of these are going to be great options. Two things you don't even want to have to consider when you're committing that failover. You just want to click a button, have Veeam take care of everything else for you. So as we go through the steps, the virtual machines in that selection is going to be the exact same as the backup file, so nothing's really changing there. What's going to be really different is the destination. So instead of picking just a target repository or a target storage device, what I'll be selecting here is going to be the full contents of a virtual machine. So I'm going to be required to pick out a host, a resource pool, a VM folder, and a data store. This is all going to be over at my DR location. Here's where I can set up those different networking options. You see that I have dissimilar networks in between my two sites. And I also have different IP schemes as well. Very common when it comes to a DR site and a production site. You're going to notice that the job settings is very similar to what we saw with inside of a backup job, still selecting proxies and repositories. The only difference here is going to be down at the bottom. So here's where I can actually put a suffix to my replica. So changing the name so I don't have any naming conflicts if this machine does come back up online. And then I can also set that number of restore points. I mentioned that that was a key differentiator for us. What I mean by that is a lot of other companies don't even have that as an option. We can actually go up to 28 as a number of restore points. What this could provide to you is a way so that if you actually had a virus, malware in your environment, you don't want to be replicating that over, then failing over to a replica that's got all these changes that are going to be corrupt. What you can do is go fail back to a point that's a couple points back in time while you clean up the issue. Under guest processing, we're still going to have application-aware image processing, making sure we process those transactional machines in a good manner. And we're going to have the exact same schedule as well. So nothing's really changing on that. I now want to take a look at backup copy. So just kind of going straight down our list of jobs that we have available inside of the software. This was a new feature we came out with in version 7. And what it's going to allow you to do is literally copy your backup files. It's one of those things that we probably spent a long time trying to think of a great name and ended up back at backup copy job. So it literally means what its name says. We're taking your backup files, copying them from your on-site location, pushing them to an off-site location so that you can have another retention. So if you do have a co-location where you store backups, it does allow you to have that. And your other option could be just upload into the cloud as well. So what this is going to do is just target out a new repository, so something else you've added inside of Veeam, and it's going to allow us to choose a separate number of restore points. So just like I mentioned with cloud, this would just be the same except it's using your own storage instead of a cloud storage. One of the biggest benefits, though, of backup copy is because we understand how these backups are formatted, we can actually do what's called a grandfather, father, son retention. So setting out processes for an archival, meaning those SLA requirements have a certain number of weeklies, monthlies, yearlies, quarterlies, whatever it may be. You can actually set those based on a schedule. The schedule for backup copy is significantly different than anything we've seen so far. What I mean by that is you can actually block off specific points in time where you do not want us to be transferring backup in case there's a WAN connection between your sites. In most cases, your users are going to be utilizing this WAN connection, and you don't want us to be interfering with that. So if you want to block off, typical business hours, make sure that we transfer only in those off-peak hours. The last option we have here for jobs is going to be backup to tape. Backup to tape is also another one released in version 7, so fairly new to us. It's just me taking your files that you have on disk, pushing them off to a tape drive. You're able to select out media pools, so incremental pools can go to different media pools, as well as a really popular option now is to only process the fulls. Under options, we're going to have our basic hardware compression, ejecting the media, and the exact same schedule we've seen a couple times before already. So I want to talk about the last option. The last option is our cloud add-on. So the cloud add-on, you can see it is a separate application. It's going to go hand in hand with backup and replication as a product. So when you buy the cloud edition, it is going to provide you with both sides of the puzzle. So it's going to still provide you with backup replication, all the features that are associated with that. But it is going to provide you with the ability to set up a backup plan. So taking these backups from your on-site location and pushing them up to the cloud for you, kind of mirroring that folder that you have for backups. This is going to be a great feature because cloud storage is really the next big thing. Making sure you have a long-term retention, can meet any sort of legal requirements, SLA requirements you may have set up in the past, and pushing them up to something like Amazon's S3 or Glacier. We do work with a lot of different cloud vendors for this so that we can push up these using their own API calls and just push them up to a bucket for you and maintain purging these files as they find necessary. Some of the options we have within our backup plan can be able to do things like change around so we have encryption, so using AES 256, as well as making sure we even encrypt the file names as well. So in case you don't want Amazon to know any of your file names, any of the backup names, because those may include things like virtual machine names or something very specific to your environment, you can actually encrypt all of that when you take it up to the cloud. So the cloud option is going to provide you with that solution to take everything up. As far as communicating with the storage vendors, you are going to have to set up that side of things with either Clearpath or Amazon. They can help you out through that process, making sure that you have the storage available up there and that Veeam can handle pushing it up there for you. So that kind of covers how our jobs run, where they're headed. I want to talk now about some of our restore options. So with our restore option, these are going to all be on local backups. If you need to get something back from the cloud side of things, you will have to request it. You'll bring it back down. And you'll be able to have all your restore options once it is local. So when we talk about our restore options, we've already talked about what a lot of these are. I just want to kind of show off how they actually work inside of a real environment. Instant VM recovery is going to be a matter of selecting my virtual machine, choosing my point in time, whether it be incremental or full. Once I've selected that out, it's going to make me choose where I'd like to put it. So I can either put it back to where it came from, or I can put it into a new location with some new settings. I'm going to be putting mine to a new location. That's because this VM is still inside of my production environment, so I don't want to have any sort of conflicts, whether it be IP, naming conflicts, anything like that. So I'll be selecting a couple different options here. And when we talk about instant VM recovery, I really want to compare it to a spare tire. So driving down the road, something happens to your tire, you're able to pull over, put a spare tire on, you're able to keep driving down the road. Same thing's also true for instant VM recovery. With instant VM recovery, something's going to happen to a virtual machine. You perform an instant VM recovery, you get it right back online in just a couple of minutes. From there, you can start doing all the troubleshooting, deep dive, figure out what actually went wrong. Just like a tire, though, a spare tire, you would have to get off that tire eventually. So getting off of it, back to your full-size tire. Same is also true for instant VM recovery. It is running this completely off the backup repository, so it is going to be slightly more hindered by performance than something like your production stand would be. I always get the ability to give a reason, which is great for audit trails, making sure you follow up with these, knowing why you actually did the restore in the first place. Two last options: powering on the VM automatically, connecting it to the network. Again, I'm going to power mine on. I don't want to connect it to my network. I have IP conflicts, and it makes for a pretty messy day. So if we hop inside of our vSphere client at this point, you're going to be able to see that this is the resource pool that I'm going to be popping up in. It is a 40 gig virtual machine, so not too big, not too small, but it's going to take about 15 seconds to get registered. So pretty fast for just registering the virtual machine, and about another 5 to go and power itself on. So definitely giving you that solution to get a VM that's crashed in the middle of the day, back up and online, users inside of it, and then you can kind of figure out what actually was going on. We do have a couple different tools. In the case of VMware, and this is a VMware and Hyper-V feature, but in the case of VMware, we can actually utilize storage vMotion if you have that license available. If not, we can actually use our own quick migration tools that we have as well. So the ability to actually just take this, push it right back into production. Now, kind of going through the rest of our restore options down our list. The next one on our list is going to be for entire VM recovery. So with entire VM recovery, it's going to be very similar to instant VM recovery with really just a change in the order of operations. What I mean by that is instant VM recovery has a complete priority on powering on the virtual machine as quickly as possible. In the case of entire VM recovery, we change the order of operations so that we rehydrate the data, we migrate it back into production, and then we go and power on the virtual machine. Our next one down the list for VMware is going to be for virtual hard disk. In the case of a virtual hard disk, again, maybe there's malware, virus, something along those lines. You can get back a more granular piece that you may be needing instead of always recovering the entire virtual machine. Now, when it comes to both Hyper-V and VMware, we actually can get back things like individual parts of it, like the VMDK file, VDHD, VHDX in case of 2012 R2. So if you're looking for some kind of those VM files, if you will, you can get any of those pieces back and restore them right back to where they came from. Now, one of the most popular is going to be our guest files for Windows. I mentioned that this does support other file systems as well, but I'm going to just show how the guest files for Windows would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this file. This is off of one of the VMs that I back up on a regular basis. And I'm going to launch guest files for Windows. When I launch this, it's going to make me choose my virtual machine. And it's going to make me choose my point-in-time backup. That is going to be a common theme through all of our restore options, so you will have to know both of those when doing any of the restores. As I mentioned, we always give the ability to put in a reason, just great for documentation purposes. And I simply next and finish. What Veeam's going to be doing now is it's actually going to be going out, grabbing the backup file. It's going to be cracking that open. And once we crack it open, we're going to mount that up. So we will navigate it just like Windows Explorer, same folder and file structure that I'm already pretty used to. So I'm going to drop down. I'm going to find that file location, and I'm going to right-click and restore it right back to its original location. A couple questions we always get asked around file recovery. What happens if the file is already there? In the case that you restore a file that's already there, maybe it's a user requested the wrong file, maybe it's you just clicked on the wrong thing. A lot of different options could be there, but what we actually do is Veeam is smart enough to see this file exists. Once we know that the file exists, we're simply going to put a prefix in front of it. So we're going to put the word original in front of it. That way we know that we restored that file, and then we're not going to overwrite something that the user's been working on. The other question we always get asked is, do I have to put it back where it originally came from? And the answer to that is no. We can actually copy it to anywhere that the Veeam server can see. So if we can browse out there on the network, find that particular location, we can actually do the restore to that particular place. Same thing we could put on the desktop, email it back to the user. Gives us some pretty versatile options when restoring files. Now, the last one down our list of restores is going to be for application items. So I mentioned the application items earlier, and we really have the ability to do 4 different wizards for application items. Those are going to be for Active Directory, SQL, Exchange, and SharePoint. You see though at the bottom it says Other Application. This is a really cool tool we have in utilizing that virtual lab we talked about for the isolated environment. We can actually spin up any virtualized machine that you want to get an application item out of. Maybe, for example, MySQL. You can use Workbench, pull out the pieces that you want, push them right back inside of production. So So we actually use our virtual lab to help you get back any virtualized application item that you may have. We can get very granular inside of those other four, though. Those are just the ones we have wizards for. So getting back different objects inside of Active Directory, maybe it's users. We can also get back Exchange, mailboxes, contacts, sticky notes, SQL, getting back tables, query results, schemas, and SharePoint, getting back database files, sub-content, as well as maybe some shared documents out there, too. So we're going to take a look at a couple of these really quickly. The first one I want to take a look at is Active Directory. If you take a look at my environment, you will see that Active Directory is spun up inside of this virtual lab. This is that appliance that I talked about. It's just a virtual machine we deploy inside of your environment. It allows us to create that isolation. So now that that machine is spun up inside of my virtual lab, I can launch something like our Active Directory UAir. I'm going to first start by deleting the user, and in this case, it's going to be Kelly. So maybe it's just you deleted someone you shouldn't have. Maybe a request came in and you deleted someone and they got rehired. Anything along those lines where you may need to get an object back inside of Active Directory. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be typing in some server information. So this is going to be my production environment, and then the next one's going to be my backup environment, so from the virtual lab. The reason I have to type these in manually is me and the other engineers share the lab. We actually like breaking as many servers as we possibly can, so we get to type stuff in manually now. So what you're going to do now is going to be running a comparison. It's going to compare the two servers, the objects inside of both of their Active Directories that I gave to it. Once it's done with this comparison, it's going to come back and show me the results. It's going to show me all the different things inside of my domain. It's going to show me all the folders that I've already used to. And just like a file recovery, I can go out to where I was located, find the user that I deleted, and just hit next, next, and finish. I'm actually done with my whole Active Directory restore. So it allows us to get down, get very granular with our application items. And again, this is all without the use of any agents or any special type of backup. So we take a look, that says it's finished. We'll hop back inside of Active Directory and refresh, and we'll see that Kelly will be right back where we wanted her to be. So providing with that ability to get very granular objects back. The other one I want to take a look at is going to be Exchange. So Exchange and SharePoint are very similar, and this is a feature for 2010 and 2013. It is called Veeam Explorer for Exchange. Just like all my restore options, I will be selecting a point in time, and I will be selecting my virtual machine as well. What we're doing now is we're going out just like we were getting a file. So we're going to crack open the backup. In this case, instead of just grabbing out any file, we're going to grab the Exchange database and then mount that up. We're going to understand how the Exchange database is built, and we're going to be able to offer a lot of different restore options to get it back. So once this is mounted up, I'm able to drop down, find my different mailboxes that may have stuff inside of it. And once I find mailbox, that's where all my restore options become available. So if we take a look under my mailbox, one of the most popular things is exporting to mailboxes.pst. This helps you in case someone leaves the company for whatever reason. You can actually keep their mailbox on retention for some period of time, maybe if you have legal reasons to do so. Or just drop down the side of their mailbox and find what you're looking for. Now, I'm going to go inside of my inbox, and this is a message I want to restore. But in order to make sure we're restoring this, I want you guys to see that I'm going to delete it out of my Outlook. So we're going to find that email here. Once it's gone, we'll just right-click, see our different restore options. The first option is going to be to open it. Maybe I want to just take a look at it, make sure it's the right one before I give it back to users. I can also save it to .msg or to the desktop. Maybe I want to put it as an attachment to an email, or just push it right back to where it came from. One of the big things we have with Veeam Explorer for Exchange is going to be our advanced find feature. So we do understand that in today's day and age, a lot of people out there are probably going to be email hoarders. They probably have a few thousand emails, probably 4,000 or 5,000 emails. And it's never fun to have to be the person who has to sift through all those to find the one that they're looking for. So I can actually type in some particular rules that I may want to set up, like setting up address fields, who it's from, and I want it to contain a particular name. So once I search out there for a name, it's going to show me all the different results that I may have. In this case, there's just one inside of my mailbox, and then I can do all my restore options once I find it. Definitely makes it a lot easier in finding that one or two emails you're looking for. So we've gone ahead and finished that restore process, and it's already inside of Outlook by the time I can get back inside of it. So definitely providing you with that easy way to get back something like an email very quickly, making sure we can restore whatever it is you're looking for. Next thing I want to talk about is Backup Enterprise Manager. So Backup Enterprise Manager is a web interface to our product. It's going to give you a little bit more insight into what's happening on both your virtual backup machines as well as your proxies, information on your size of your backups, how much space you're actually utilizing, as well as kind of an overview on your jobs. So if you take a look here on the jobs I've been running in the last 24 hours, I can see how many total ran, how many were successful, how many had warnings, and how many had errors as well. This is all going to be based around the last 24 hours, but I can also click on last 7 days, go back a little bit farther in time to be able to see things over a slightly larger stretch. If I click on, say, errors, just because I'm curious about what jobs had errors in them, I can see all the job names, what backup server that they're attached to in case that I have multiple and I'm managing multiple sites from one location. And if I click on the job, it's actually going to show me all the different times that this job is ran. I can see when there was warnings, when there was errors, when it actually came up and finished successfully. If I click on any of the results, what it's going to take me to is a screen where I can see which VMs are included inside the job, which ones failed, and I can see their exact log files as well. So providing me with some additional insight to get in there, figure out what the log file is without always having to go inside of the console. Under the Jobs tab is where I can come inside and see the different jobs that I've scheduled out inside of my environment. This will span across multiple virtual backup servers if that's how big your environment may be. And it's going to allow me to do basic job actions against anything I can find out there. So doing things like starting a job, stopping a job, clone it, edit it, retry it, whatever I may need to do. If we take a look under Files, Files is where that guest file system indexing option comes back into play. I can search out there for a word like critical, provide any advanced information that I may want, like what type of document it is, when it was backed up. And if I don't want to do any of that, I can actually just search out there, find the word. It's going to show me all the different matches. It'll show me what virtual machine it's attached to. It'll show me where the path of it is and what day it was backed up. I still have the ability to just right-click, restore it back to its original location. Maybe I want to download the file, want to check it out before I give it back to it, make sure it's the correct file. Or I can add it to restore this to be restored later. There are 3 different roles that can be set up inside of Backup Enterprise Manager. The first one's going to be for administrator. I can log in, I can see all these tabs, I can really do everything as well as far as file restores are concerned. The second option is going to be for a viewer. They log in, they can see everything, but they can't actually do anything when it comes to the restores. The third option is going to be for a file restore operator. What the file restore operator is going to have access to is they're not going to see any of these tabs when they log in. They're simply going to be taken to a screen where they can search, provide advanced search data, and match up all their files. So this is a great option in case you want to delegate out some of your power of doing these file restores on the backups that you're going to have. So they can come in, find all the matches for the file, and they only have one option. They will only be able to restore it right back to its original location. So in the case that they didn't have access to the file in the first place, they're not going to magically gain access or anything like that, helping you preserve any sort of permission rights, ownership rights that you may have. So that's kind of the wrap-up of the Veeam product in general. I do want to encourage anyone who has any questions to go ahead and type those into the questions box as part of our go-to webinar console. Looks like we have a few out there we're going to take some time to answer. Let's see here. All right, so it looks like the first one I have here is, let me expand my chat box 1 second. If the restored VM was a domain member and is renamed on restore, what happens to a domain member? So when in the case that we're putting it back to a new location, we're actually not changing anything as far as settings are concerned, so it's going to be able to have both of them online at the same time. In the case that you chose to put it back to where it came from, that's when we override it. So in that option, you cannot change the name or anything like that. There are 2 separate options, putting it back where it came from or putting it to a new location. So I hope that answers your question, Peter. Looks like we had another question about the webinar and if we could get a copy of that or a copy of the slides as well. We are recording the webinar, so we can have Clearpath or follow up, make sure we get the resources that you're looking for. Again, if you guys have any additional questions before we wrap things up here, go ahead and type those out as part of the console. That way we can get those answered. All right, so we've got a question from Paul. Is there a way to back up files off Windows servers, even though we can't do a complete backup? Yes, we can back up to tape when it comes to file backups. We're not backing up the physical boxes or anything like that as a direct manner of a backup, but we can do backup files to tape. We can also utilize file copy files from one location to another, back up a virtual machine that has those files attached. Also got another question. Can everything be scripted? So if you want to be a little more specific on what you want to be scripted, when it comes to things like failover, that's all automated. And all of our recoveries are really done kind of at the push of a button. But we do have PowerShell scripting, so if you want to take care of all that as kind of create your own, you can do that as well. So it looks like I'm caught up on questions again. Any additional questions, more than happy to answer those. Either Veeam or Clearpath can follow up on any of these questions that you may have. Anything you have to add, Sean?
No, I appreciate everybody's time today.
All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for attending. Again, if you have any follow-up questions, we will have our contacts available, and someone from Clearpath or Veeam can reach out to you and answer any sort of questions you may have. So thanks, everyone, for attending. Hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon.